Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I've got a little bit of an experiment today. I felt like I needed a bit of a change really from stitching on my textile collage, my underwater world textile collage. Loving it, but sometimes you just need to have a little bit of a change, don't you, when you've been doing something for a while. And I've also been starting on some online art classes, but I can't really share those in a video so easily because they're following along with tutorials that aren't mine to share. I'll do some flip throughs when I've done a few, in case anybody's interested to see those. But today I'm going to kind of revisit something I did a while back. I've been looking around my craft room and looking at things that I hadn't done for a while, I haven't used for a while. I'm planning to have a bit more of a clear out and start the new year with, I've got lots of new ideas coming up for the new year. I'm already thinking ahead and I need to have a little bit of a clear out. I want to finish up some projects, use some supplies that I haven't used for a while and kind of, use it or lose it. And I've actually been looking at some of my own older videos and thinking I've got supplies there. I can follow my own older videos and use up some of those supplies and make things as gifts, or maybe will end up in my Etsy shop. I just wanted to do something different for a change. So today I'm coming back to the great momigami experiment. These are the momigami papers that I made quite a while ago now. I will link to the videos that I did. Let me take you to the desk and show you these a bit better. I love them, and I've been hanging on to them thinking I'm going to do something really amazing with these, and I've never got round to it. So yes, with a view to use it or lose it and finish what you started and all those promises I made myself at the beginning of this year, I'm going to be coming back to a few projects like this, and let's just see what I can do with these gorgeous papers that I so loved. I loved making them, I loved the process, and I love how they turned out. I still love how they feel and look, but I've never done anything with them. So these I made with some of my old scrapbooking papers from when I was mad into scrapbooking. So these were typical, fairly heavyweight, double-sided scrapbooking papers. These were the kind of papers that you used to get inside scrapbooking magazines, so not quite such good quality paper, but still double-sided, and they've turned out reasonably robust. Now the first lot of momigami papers that I did, I used the method that a lot of people have been doing, I saw doing online at the time, which was using hand cream or various oils and things and just massaging the paper with that. If I can find it, an example of one of the pieces there it is. I saw it. Alright. This was doing Arty Fartober one year, I think. So this was actually a magazine page. Now I ended up, and I did this just with the hand cream method, but because the magazine pages are quite fragile and I was only using the hand cream method as well, I loved the texture that it gave, but I did feel it wasn't very robust, so I backed it onto a piece of calico, which kind of defeats the object in a way. And then I sort of thread painted into this little photograph of a bird. I think it was from a National Trust magazine. So I really enjoyed doing that. I definitely could enjoy doing more of it. These papers I did using the more traditional starchy paste method. So this is cognac or konjac. This looks like cognac gum powder, which I had to get online. It was quite expensive, this pot, and I cannot bear the feeling of the label. I can hardly bear to touch it. I have to hold it like that. I don't know what it's made of. Sets my teeth on edge. Just seen that it says use within 6 months of opening, but I think that's partly because it is also intended for culinary purposes, so I'm not going to worry about it. It's still dry and perfectly usable. So it's quite expensive, but I only used a tiny bit of it really. It goes a long way, and it definitely, I felt, had better results than using the hand cream and things. What I haven't tried at all is adding any kind of finishing, like I wondered what would happen if I used Mod Podge on it or something like that. I haven't tried anything like that yet, but I probably will during this experiment I'm going to start today. So having a look through the papers that I've got, you can see that that's 2 sheets together. It still sounds kind of papery, but it feels very soft, very, very soft. I'm not going to pull it really, really hard. I think it would tear, but you can see it's pretty robust. You certainly couldn't have done that with the original paper out of the magazine that this came from. And I've got a lovely range of bright colours and prints here. Some I like better than others. I don't like either of those, but I can use the other side. And I'd like to do a combination of machine stitching and hand stitching with these. I possibly add some more. I could add paint and markers and things to them if I wanted to, or beads and sequins and things like that. These ones came out especially robust, and I think you could make things like pouches and what have you with them, or book covers. So yeah, I thought I'd try a few ideas of different ways to use these papers up and turn them into something that, you know, is actually usable, rather than just have them sat on my shelf taking up space and every so often taking them out and thinking, oh, I love these, and then putting them away again. One thing I wanted to try that I haven't tried yet is ironing them. So since I've got 2 of some of these papers, I thought, I love this paper. I don't like that side so much. I do love this. And what I want to do is try ironing it, and from what I understand, if you iron it, it does kind of flatten it out, but you don't lose the pliability, and you still get the, you know, the little creases aren't just going to disappear. So as I've got 2 identical pieces there, let's try ironing this one and see how much difference it makes, and if it's a difference that I like. One thing that's interesting to note is that the paper gets kind of, I don't know, well, it gets smaller actually. The more you crumple it, the smaller it gets. I reckon I lost at least 10% of the area of this paper doing this, if not more. Okay, interesting. So, holding those side by side, you can definitely see a difference. It isn't any less soft, as far as I can tell. Maybe it is. Maybe it's slightly stiffer now. Does it feel slightly stiffer now? I'm not sure. See, I do wonder, because it's impregnated with that starchy paste. You know, how does the heat? How is that starchy paste that's in there affected by the heat? You know, and I really love the. I love the texture of this with all the creases in it, but I feel like with this you have still got that. It's flatter, but you have still got that interesting texture. It's just different, I suppose. I like both. So I might leave one crumpled. I think I've got 2 of this one as well. Let's do one of these as well. So I've got a few different ideas for things I'd like to make. Perhaps a couple of small, you know, one large pouch and a couple of small bags or something like that. Maybe a scroll that I could make it do some kind of meditative canter stitching on. I've got some watercolour, heavy watercolour paper here. I wondered if I could make a little mini sketchbook with it, with this as the cover. Yeah, I like how even when this is flattened out, you've still got that lovely texture and pliability. That's really nice. I'm going to do a mixture of machine stitching and hand stitching, I think. I like the idea of cutting out some of these, and I guess with the ones that are cut out it might be better to have these straight edges. I'm going to have a little play now and just decide which papers I'm going to use first to make my first little mini project with these. I'll be back in a mo. Okay, I've made a start. I've actually just done a line of machine stitching around 2 layers of this one together, just to make it that little bit more robust, because I'd like it to be usable, a reusable pouch, not just something that would get used as a gift bag and thrown away. So the idea is it would go together like this. I'll be finishing the edges differently, it might even end up a different size. Just wanted them to be held together while I do some hand stitching. Then I thought I'd add a little something inside the flap here, you know, that would look nice, or this one. I now wish I'd stitched that on before I stitched these 2 layers together, so lesson learnt there. And I also thought I could do a little faux, you know, where you get these tags out of the side of pouches and things. I could even make that, I could stitch this one onto this, fold it over and make a kind of label out of it. I think that could be fun. I did think I could put one of these little things on the back as well. Quite like the idea of happy little moments, and maybe do a machine zigzag of that before I stitch this up. So yeah, I think this one's going to go on the inside flap, this will go on the back, and then I'll make this little kind of tag here. But to put that one on the inside flap, I can't now zigzag it round because then it'll be obvious from the other side. I should have thought of that. I could unpick this bit around the edge here and do that now. I could make myself do that. How well would this unpick without, you know, as it's paper, it's not like handling fabric, is it? Let's just have a tentative go. Should have thought it through, you see, shouldn't I? I think I'll be able to do it. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to peel that back and stitch this bit on the inside with a zigzag stitch. I've been using a rainbow kind of variegated machine thread, so it's all different kinds of colours. Whatever colour it comes out is fine. And at the moment, there's yellow in my bobbin, so that's gonna have to do. I think those colours will go fine with any of these. Okay, I'm going to sort this issue out and then come back to a little bit hand stitching. Yeah, I'm just going to do some straight canter stitching across the whole thing. I could, if I wanted to, I could stitch around these motifs. I could do some little seed stitching, and the lemons would be nice. I could do a bit of a fly stitch up here on the leaves. I want a kind of all over stitching. I think that will help to strengthen it. And I could just run some machine stitching back and forth, I guess, but you know me, I like my bit of hand stitching. Okay, back in a mo. Managed to successfully unpick this. I went a bit careful with it, but it's pretty robust, this stuff, actually. Quite surprising. It's getting all little bits of thread out of the way now. I've cut this little square out from this piece. I'm just going to use a little dob of Pritt stick just in the centre to tack it into place while I machine it. Try and get that roughly central. I'll just do a zigzag around there. Then I cut this little snippet out. Let's cut this one as well. What I'm kind of thinking is that I can applique that to that. Probably need a zigzag stitch around the outside to strengthen that, and then that'll be folded in half like a label that will tuck inside the seam like that. I don't know, now I've put it there I don't like it so much. Perhaps it could just go inside there instead. And I still want to put this piece on the back as well, so I'm using up lots of these little pieces now, and I think that a multicolour zigzag around all of them will hopefully be fine. I could hand back blanket stitch them on as well, but okay, well if I'm going to lay those up on there, I might as well do the same little trick with the Pritt stick. Let's get that roughly central. Is that too much? I think it is. I'm going to keep this for another piece. I'll just put that to one side. I'm going up to zigzag this on the machine. Probably redo that bit of straight stitching that I've unpicked. And then it's time for a bit of canter stitching. I might even try, before I do the final stitch together of this one, I wonder if this is a good candidate to try giving it a coat of Mod Podge to make it more robust. I don't know, can't decide. It will spoil the feel of it to some extent, so I'm a bit loath to do that. Yeah, maybe I'll leave this one as is and I'll try the Mod Podge on a smaller piece first. Okay, here we go. That's that stitched on. I think it looks quite cute. And that's on the inside, so this will fold up like that. Once I've done my straight stitching, I'll straighten up all the edges, zigzag around the flaps and zigzag down here to close this. So that'll be a nice neat finish. So probably you won't see this straight stitching, that'll be zigzagged over or actually even cut off, but it's just holding it all together for me at the moment when I do the straight stitching. So I'm going to go with this, I think, because I think it goes with all the colours involved. I'm just going to use 2 strands and just do a whole lot of my favourite stitching really, which is just a bit of simple canter stitching. Fairly nice sharp needle because I don't want to be making too big a hole in it, but it's the eye of it's got to be big enough to take my 2 strands. I never know what the needle is called that I hardly ever know what the needle is called that I'm using. But well, this might even be, I'm not sure, somebody will probably be able to tell me. It might even be a milliner's needle, you know, where, because the eye of the needle isn't really any fatter than the shaft of the needle. Anyway, this is the needle I'm using. It's fairly long and sharp. It's got a big enough eye to take my thread, but not too big of an eye because I don't want to make too big of a hole in the paper, because it's not going to close up in the same way that fabric would. I'm just going to start myself with a knot because I don't mind the look of knots. And I'm just going to straight stitch away to my heart's content. And while I'm doing this, I'm gonna try and have a bit of a catch up with what some of my YouTuber mates have been getting up to. I'm so behind, I'm missing everything at the moment. I've got to see what Cass of Lovecraft with Cass is up to, Christine of Create and Craft with Christine, Tori of Cool Cookie Creatures, my mate Johnny, Just Johnny Creations, Susie Q Makes, Double O Sue from Sue Matthews Art. Oh, I mean, there's so many people. I've got some amazing YouTuber friends. Paula on Craft Artisaurus, Zoe on Zoe Artist. I have YouTuber mates from all over the world who are so inspiring. And I've been so overwhelmed just lately that I've gotten out of touch with what everybody's doing. And I'm sure there's a few people there I haven't mentioned as well, but I will link to some of my favourite YouTuber mates in the description box, just in case you've missed them. It's been lovely to see so many people being inspired by the Underwater World textile collage inspired by our Viviana. There's still people creating beautiful pieces inspired by our Maggie Morris. I think that inspiration will carry on for many years to come. And lovely also to see all the gorgeous swaps going back and forth across the world for the Home Sweet Home swap. So with that, it's not just about stitching, any arts and crafts go. Any format, just if, you know, the idea was just that you would agree it with your swap partners we call swapsters. And wow, people have outdone themselves this time. The ideas and creativity out there are just mind-blowing. So many wonderful little pieces of handmade magic. I'm kind of sitting swap out this time because I was just so overwhelmed with stuff, but I had 3 people that were already on my list from last time, so I'm just doing 3, and I already know what I'm doing. I knew pretty much straight away what I was going to do, and it's something that's it's quite a it's not a quick project, put it that way, so it's probably just as well I'm only doing 3, but it is something I absolutely love to do and don't get to do too often. So I'm not going to say what it is just yet, because I don't want to spoil the surprise for my swapsters, but I will film some of the process and see if I can tempt a few of you down the rabbit hole with me. I know a few of you already enjoy this particular rabbit hole. Well, this paper is certainly easy to stitch. You can tell by the sound of it that it feels a bit different from a stitching with fabric, but it's certainly not difficult. I love the feel of it, and I'm hoping the stitching will give it a bit more robustness. I think that stitching is going to look pretty too. So I'm just going to carry on going now and cover this piece with straight stitching, and then when it's time to do the final assembly, I will be back. Off to do some video binging now. Right, here we go. I've been getting on quite well. I love the feel of this now. It feels even more kind of fabricy now. I've straight stitched back and forth all the way. Just gone outside of the margins of where I did that kind of stay stitching around the outside. Avoided the bits where the little labels are. And now I think I'm just going to do a zigzag stitch all around and then trim off the excess. Try and do a reasonably straight zigzag stitch, and I'll make it a little bit closer than I've done there as well. I'll just fold it like this, and then zigzag straight up here, across there, and down here. So in effect I'm closing the sides and I'm edging the flap at the same time. Nice and simple. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay, I had a quick rethink and decided to turn under the top and bottom edges before I started stitching this together, because I just thought that'd be a better finish, a little bit more robust. So I've done that. I've stitched all the way around there, and now I'm just going to trim it off. I'm hoping my paper scissors are going to work, because I don't really want to be using my best fabric scissors. And at the end of the day, it is paper, not fabric. Yep, they seem to be cutting fine. I like using these really long ones. I think they're meant for doing wallpaper or something. But I find it easier to cut a straight line with a long pair of scissors. It's feeling, the more I work with it, the more and more fabric it's feeling. The scissors aren't cutting the thread bits, so I have to go back and cut the thread bits separately. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Okay, let's do the other side. Very happy with that. There's no reason why I couldn't put a little bit of cotton wadding between the two layers of paper either, you know, just to give it a bit more body if I wanted to. But kind of wanted to see what it would be like if I just used paper with these. But yeah, cute little way to give a small gift, and hopefully something that would be used again. So yeah, happy with that. Right, on to the next thing. Okay, figured out what I'm going to do next. So I've taken this piece now and I've folded up some of these little, I think they were A5 size, which is half A4, A4 being letter paper, if you're in the US would be the closest. Folded them in half. Now I could either choose to do a bit of binding and turn these into a little mini sketchbook, or I could leave them loose like this to turn into little greetings cards. At the moment I'm just going to leave them like this, and I'm going to make a kind of like a little mini journal wrap. I'm gonna make the cactus print the outside, and then I'll use I'm turning the cactus that way up, and I've turned over kind of a hem and I'm going to make a pocket like that. But I want to make myself think first this time about what do I want to do before I assemble this. And I'm also wondering, although it's not fabric, if I think it might be difficult to kind of fully turn it inside out in the way you would if you were doing this in fabric. You might stitch it there, cut the corners, turn it inside out. I think that'll be tricky with paper, but I think I could do the bottom hem that way. I want to make sure my cacti end up the right way up. No, that's still not going to be it. Okay, so I've had to cut it that way and then seam it together that way, so that when I turn it right way round, my cacti will be the right way up. I think I'm going to do that. That's going to be my first step, is to rejoin this piece of paper together, basically along there, with just a straight seam on my sewing machine. And all this definitely could be hand stitched if I wanted to. I just want to try out a few ideas a bit more quickly, so I'm not going to do too much more of the hand stitching. I wanted to try the hand stitching to see how it would work on the momigami paper, and yeah, it definitely does. You should see the mess I'm creating around me. Seriously, you can't see the half of it here. Okay, that's that seam done. I do love this rainbow thread. It's not going to show in this case, but never mind. One thing I would advocate is, I've done that on, what is it, number 3 stitch lengths on my machine. I don't think you'd want to go any smaller than that, because I think if you did, you might be at risk of tearing the paper. Normally, like with fabric, you think the smaller the stitch, the stronger the seam, but actually I think it might be a bit different with paper. So now I'm going to just fold this back, and where, if this was a fabric seam, I'd use my iron. I'm just going to use my bone folder to open this seam out, and then I'm going to fold it up. The stuff, doesn't it? It's like I've stitched it together into a whole piece of paper again, but these cacti are pointing one way and these are pointing the other way. So let's now see how durable this stuff is. It's incredible, really. But this was once quite stiff scrapbooking paper. I do think this was the most successful of all my momigami experiments, was this sort of fairly heavyweight double-sided scrapbooking paper. There we go. So let's go to the inside. And that's too tall, but I did allow for a hem, and I could, if I felt so inclined, do a whole lot of straight stitching across here as well, which I think would be quite nice. Also want to, just checking for height, I also want to turn down this top hem. And okay, you could say I don't really need to, it's not like it's going to fray as such, but you can see that white edge, and I just think it looks more finished with that hem. I want to allow plenty of clearance. Okay, enough of a hem to neaten it all up, and then I'll do a little zigzag along there as well, because I like the look of that as much as anything. I could double it over like you would with a fabric hem as well. I think it would be perfectly fine. But I don't think I need to. Then I'm going to zigzag these edges, and I think I'm going to want to put a straight seam down here somewhere to slot my little pockets into, but I'm not my little cards into, but I'm not sure yet. I'll just take it one step at a time. I've done those edges, I've done these, haven't trimmed them yet. I think what I'm going to do is put this roughly in the middle, because it's not like it needs to reach all the way over to there. As long as this is big enough to come over and wrap. So what I'm now going to do is just think to myself, okay, so it needs some lines here just to keep this all in order. I'll crease myself a line there, and then I want about the same amount at this end. Very, very much making this up as I go along. Love how this feels to work with. It's almost, I think you can see, it's almost leathery really. So I think that's given me enough of a mark. I'm just going to do a line of straight stitching down there, and that gives me plenty of room to put a little notebook or this little stack of cards or whatever I want to in there. And then in these bits I can put some pencils or whatever. Okay. One thing I don't really like is the way this stitching looks on the outside. It looks better. The stitching there looks nice, but the way it pops through on the underside isn't so pretty. And it's a shame that's the outside cover, which is a bit annoying. And there's nothing I can really do about it. I think in hindsight it might have been better to have hand stitched that part. And I guess what I could do is still carefully hand stitch over the top of it, which might improve the look of it. So I might think about doing that. Or I might maybe zigzagging over it would work. Zigzagging from the front. Yeah, I might do that. Yeah, the machine stitching on this paper definitely looks better from the top, so I need to bear that in mind for future projects. It's good to learn. It's good to learn from these experiments and take that knowledge forward. So I've got this, which kind of goes, but it almost goes a little bit too well, and I think I might save that to go with the bag I plan to make this one. But I love this little strip of ribbon. I think this might come from Ellen, and I think this is a bit more unexpected, a bit more fun than this little booklet, so I'm going to use this. I could even tie them together with some of this, couldn't I? Or some of this. Yeah, I think that's nice. It just picks up that little touch of pink in there. I could punch a hole with my crocodile and put an eyelet in there and thread it through. That could be quite fun. Eyelets. I could put 2 eyelets there and there. Thread this through, and then it would come out there and there. And I could just tie it closed. Need to have a little bit of a think. Okay, so some finishing touches to do there. A bigger pouch to make, my scroll to make, a couple of charms. I do rather like this combination of this black and white with this yellow, and I'm wondering what to do with it. Another idea that occurred to me is just to be able to make an envelope shape, really. Oh, just as I said, envelope shape. Look at these. These are made to look like little stamps. So that's got me thinking now. Maybe I could make an envelope with that's like this on the outside with the stamps and that on the inside. So that's another idea. I don't think I'm going to have time to actually work through all of these ideas in this one video, so I think what I might do now is do a bit of playing around. I'm going to use this in the scroll because I just think that'd be so lovely to stitch into. I'm going to do a bit of playing around and show you a few snippets of what I'm up to, and then come back and show you how I got on when I'm all done and these are all finished up nicely. Yeah, otherwise the video's going to get crazy long again. I seem to be making some crazy long videos lately. Decided to be brave and see if I could turn this inside out, so I've picked one of the more robust papers to try this with. I've just folded the whole thing in half and stitched it up there, and I want to make this flat bottomed kind of pouch, so I'm thinking the easiest way in these circumstances is going to be to do that thing where you pinch a little triangle like that and stitch across, and that will create my flat bottom. I'm just going to go for it. It's only paper. I've invested a lot of time and energy into, but never mind. We're having fun and we're learning. There. What I've forgotten is that I did want this to be the outside, but never mind. I guess what I need to think is if I want that to be the width of the bottom, let's fold that up first. so funny that even the fact that it doesn't want to hold a fold, it's because this paper in its original state would have held the fold really well. Okay, I need to cut this little seam at an angle. Do the same on the other side. In for a penny, in for a pound. Just open the seam up flat as well. Might need to do a bit of hand finishing on this one. I could even resort to glue, I suppose, because it is paper. Yeah, I think by folding that, deciding that's going to be the width of my base, or that's half the width of my base, that enables me to then fold this little triangle to the size it needs to be. Just pinch that little bit there, stitch across there. It'd be nice if it would hold a bit of a fold, because that would that would make it a lot easier. But there we go. I want to sort of to stitch there, and the same on this side. Yeah, I think that's going to work. And I might have to either glue here or do a hand stitch job just to stitch those edges down. We'll see how I get on. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch straight line right across there and there to create that flat bottom. I think it might be a bit of a crooked flat bottom, but never mind. Okay, I've got those done. I'm actually really quite favouring the idea of having a deliberately visible seams on the outside now. Kind of tempted, just out of curiosity, to see if I could turn it inside out if I wanted to. It's surprisingly malleable. I mean, look. You'd never think that was scrapbook paper I'm working with there. I can actually properly turn those corners out. Look at that. I could just use a little bit of strong glue there to hold those up. Now I'm thinking, shall I leave it? Shall I leave it that way out? Oops. Just doing a bit of a crease on the bottom to help it to stand. I'm really pushing the paper to its extremes now to see how well this method has worked. I mean, it's quite a sturdy little thing now with that hem turned. That's given it a bit more rigidity as well. It's actually quite a handy little sort of caddy thing now. So if I probably will just use glue there on those just to glue those points in there. But yeah, quite a handy little thing. Could make two little handles like that to turn it into like a gift bag. I suppose. Cannot get over how malleable that still is. Incredible. Okay, I need to stop now because it's time to go and get dinner. So I'm going to carry on. Look at that. I'm going to carry on with the other ideas I've spoken about, but I need to stop now and go get dinner sorted. So I'll see you in the morning. Well, I think I'm all done. I've got a nice little pile of goodies there made from my papers, and I've still got all of these bits which will now go into my collage drawer. So let me show you what I've ended up making. Well chuffed with how robust this stuff is and how malleable it is. Yeah, so here's the little pouch that I could just put you know, I could put it in with swaps or whatever, if I, you know, just put little samples of ribbons and trims or little snippets, whatever. Yeah, just a nice way to give a small gift of any kind, or even something like a gift voucher could go in there, and then hopefully somebody would use that again for little keepsakes. I think it'll be fairly durable. I haven't tried actually coating any with Mod Podge or similar, but that would obviously give it more life, but it would change the texture, and I just love, I wish I could, I'm so often saying these days I wish I had Feely Vision so that you could see what this, it's just such a lovely texture and a surprising texture. So that's that little pouch, which I love. These are the little cards I made with some of the leftover snippets, just little, you know, kind of cards you might put in. There's one blank one left. You might put in with little swaps, little gifts or whatever. Yeah, just a nice little colourful card to send. So yeah, very very happy with those. I think they'd be nice to give in this little pouch, which would also be nice to hold a small sketchbook and a pencil or whatever, or a notebook. But quite a nice way to give a little set of cards, I think. I might punch holes in this to fasten it or find some other way, but at the moment I think just, yeah, it would look quite nice to just tie it with a little piece of ribbon, little piece of torn silk like that. I just think that would be a really cute way to give those cards as a little gift. These were the envelopes. You will have seen me start, and then I carried on working on them. So I've got the sort of faux stamps on the front of this one. I just love the feel of it. And this one I've just left, you know, to flap over. It could be taped or stitched or glued closed, you know, or you could even just tuck the flap inside like that. I'm quite happy with it just like that for the time being. Yeah, I'm just so taken with these. And this one you will have seen me using my handy dandy crocodile, which I temporarily lost because I had tied it up and put it in a new place. I could have just punched a hole. It's not like it's going to fray, it's just paper, so I could have just used the hole punch, but I thought, well, I've got all these still got all these brads and eyelets and things left over from my scrapbooking days, so I may as well use them. So I just used that as a way to make a little closure for my whatever I put in there, and my hope would be that whoever I send it to would think, oh, that would be a really nice place to keep whatever. Good place to stash little keepsakes. Again, you know, you could just use it as a way to present a gift card. I think it would look really pretty with, you know, a bigger ribbon or whatever as well. Yeah, so that's that one. I made this with some of the scraps, which I just stitched together with lots of random higgledy-piggledy, wibbly-wobbly machine stitching. My idea is that I will take some different textures of embroidery threads and just enjoy doing some meditative canter style stitching along these pieces. I just, yeah, picking the colours to go with the colours that I've layered up there. I did check that it's not too tough to put a needle through. Well, some bits of it are probably, yeah, I've got a lot of layers there, so that's a bit tougher than, yeah, I shall need to use a strong needle to go through those parts. But if there's a difficult bit, I could just use my little pokey tool first to make a little hole first. I think I've ended up with about 6 layers of paper there, so yeah. but I think that would just be quite a fun thing to just to stitch into. And here's one of my homemade spools, which I could cover with some of that scrap actually. It just feels, as I'm rolling this, it feels so fabricy, almost denim-y feeling. And then I made this as a little extra doodad, as a kind of a cover for one of these scrolls. Again, I fancy doing some straight stitching, and this would be fairly easy because it is only a couple of layers of the paper, so that would be easy to do some straight stitching in. I think if I just held it up and you didn't know, you'd probably assume that was fabric, wouldn't you? Yeah. So then the idea is, I'd put my fabric on the spool. What I might do is leave it wound on here so it starts to learn its shape. This would go around it just to keep it all nice. There we go. Tuck my little beady bits in. And there we go, lovely little cover for my scroll. I think that would look really cute sitting on the shelf. Yeah, we'll chuff with that. It's just been, mainly this is an experiment to see what can I do, where can you actually stitch, you know, what are the limits to this stuff. Now I've made all this paper, what can I actually do with it? So I think all in all that's been quite a successful experiment. I'm just going to see if I can manage to get a thumbnail now. There we go. That will do me for a thumbnail. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. That's a day well spent, I think, and an interesting experiment. I hope if you, like me, got carried away a few months back and made a whole load of momigami papers, and they've sat ever since waiting for you to do something with them. I hope that might have given you a few ideas to try. If you've got any other ideas, or you've tried any other things with your momigami papers, please do feel free to share them in the comments. It's always good to inspire each other and share our ideas. So yeah, I'll be very glad to hear any ideas that you've got, or share some pictures in the Discord community or Facebook group. Links to everything is in the description box. If you want some other ideas for what to do with momigami papers, I know that Tori of Cool Cookie Creatures did do momigami papers a while back. Quite a while back. I think we all went on a bit of a binge of it like, a few months back. And also Christine of Creating Craft with Christine did a lovely piece where she hand stitched onto momigamied map paper. Yeah, so I'll leave links to them in the description box as well. But for me, for today, that's it. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you again really soon. Bye.